What if the idea that men are supposed to chase relationships to feel complete is actually holding them back? What if the pressure to settle down, commit early, and structure your life around a partner is quietly working against your mental clarity, your ambition, and your sense of self? I know that sounds uncomfortable. It goes against everything we've been taught by movies, music, social media, and even well-meaning family advice. From a young age, men are told that happiness comes from finding the right person and building life around them. But what if that story is incomplete, or worse, outdated? Over the last decade, psychologists and social researchers have been noticing a pattern that doesn't get talked about very often. A growing number of men who choose to remain single, not out of fear or bitterness, but by intention, are reporting higher levels of peace, focus, and satisfaction than many men who are coupled but unfulfilled. This isn't about avoiding responsibility, hating relationships, or pretending loneliness doesn't exist. It's about understanding how modern life, modern expectations, and modern masculinity interact in ways that our old relationship scripts were never designed to handle. This video isn't here to tell you that love is bad or that commitment is a mistake. Plenty of healthy relationships exist, and for the right man at the right time, they can be deeply meaningful. What we are examining here is something more nuanced. We're looking at why studies are increasingly confirming that men who embrace singlehood as a valid life phase often experience better mental health, stronger focus, and greater fulfillment than society expects. And one of the reasons behind this, especially the third one we'll cover later, tends to surprise even trained psychologists. So whether you're single, in a relationship, or somewhere in between, this isn't about choosing side. It's about questioning assumptions. It's about asking whether the life you're building actually aligns with who you are, or whether you've been following a script you never consciously agreed to. Because once you start looking at the data and the lived experiences of men today, it becomes clear that being single isn't a failure state. For many men, it's where clarity, strength, and direction finally begin. Let's start with something that sounds backwards at first, but becomes hard to ignore once you really look at it. Many men who choose to stay single on purpose are actually more emotionally stable than men who are stuck in relationships that drain them. And the key word here is choose. There is a big difference between a man who feels single because he's unwanted and a man who is single because he's intentional. Those two experiences are not the same, and the research makes that very clear. When psychologists study men and mental health, they consistently find that relationship quality matters far more than relationship status. Long-term studies that track stress, anxiety, and depression show that men in high-conflict or emotionally demanding relationships often experience elevated stress levels, sleep problems, and chronic anxiety. On the other hand, men who are single but comfortable with that choice tend to report lower baseline stress and a greater sense of emotional balance. They are not constantly bracing for the next argument or worrying about whether they're failing someone else's expectations. One reason for this is emotional labor. In many modern relationships, men quietly carry a lot of unspoken pressure. They are expected to regulate their partner's emotions, anticipate needs, manage conflict carefully, and still remain calm, confident, and emotionally available at all times. Over time, that pressure adds up. Even men who care deeply about their partners can feel mentally exhausted, like they are always monitoring themselves instead of simply being present. That constant tension doesn't always look dramatic from the outside, but internally it takes a real toll. Single men who embrace their situation often describe the opposite experience. Without the ongoing emotional negotiations of a relationship, their minds feel clearer. They have more space to process their own thoughts, their own stress, and their own emotions without feeling rushed or judged. This doesn't mean they avoid feelings or connection. It means they're not carrying the weight of someone else's emotional world on top of their own. That breathing room creates a sense of calm that many men didn't even realize they were missing until it returned. Researchers who study long-term mental health patterns have noted that men in unhappy relationships often show stress markers similar to those found in high-pressure work environments. Meanwhile, intentional single men who maintain friendships, routines, and personal goals often report feeling more grounded and more like themselves. The uncomfortable truth is that a bad relationship is usually worse for a man's mental health than being alone. When singlehood is reframed as space rather than failure, it becomes a stabilizing force instead of a painful one. And once your mind clears, something else starts to change: your relationship with money and security. When a man isn't constantly managing relationship expenses, shared decisions, or financial expectations, his entire relationship with money starts to change. One of the most common sources of tension in modern relationships is finances. Studies on long-term partnerships consistently show that money-related stress is one of the top reasons relationships break down. It's not just about how much money there is, but how it's spent, saved, and prioritized. Different values around money can quietly create resentment even in relationships that look fine from the outside. Single men, by contrast, have complete financial control. Every decision they make is based on their own goals, timeline, and tolerance for risk. If they want to live modestly for a few years to invest more aggressively, they can do that without having to justify it. If they want to relocate for a better job or downsize their lifestyle to reduce stress, there's no negotiation involved. That freedom allows single men to move faster and make decisions with clarity instead of compromise. This autonomy also changes how men approach their careers. Many single men are more willing to take calculated risks, such as switching industries, starting a business, or working extra hours to build something long-term. When no one else depends on your income for stability, risk becomes a tool instead of a threat. Over time, those risks often compound into higher earning potential, stronger savings habits, and earlier financial independence. It's not about chasing luxury or status symbols. It's about building a life where money creates options instead of anxiety. There's also a simplicity that reduces financial stress in a way most people underestimate. No joint accounts to manage, no ongoing debates about spending priorities, and no quiet guilt about earning more or less than a partner. Your money has a clear purpose because it's aligned with your own values. Research on financial well-being shows that clarity and control matter more for peace of mind than income alone. Single men who budget intentionally and invest consistently often report feeling calmer about their financial future than men earning more but carrying shared financial tension. When wealth is viewed as freedom rather than status, and control is understood as peace of mind rather than selfishness, money stops being a constant source of pressure. It becomes a stabilizing foundation. But money isn't the only thing men reclaim when they stay single. Something even more important returns: connection. There's a common belief that single men are isolated and lonely, while men in relationships are socially fulfilled. But when researchers actually look at how men's social lives change over time, a different picture starts to emerge. Many studies show that when men enter serious relationships, their social circles often shrink. Time, energy, and emotional attention slowly shift toward one person, and friendships that once felt natural start to fade into the background. It doesn't happen overnight, and it's rarely intentional, but the result is the same: fewer connections and less support. Single men don't have to make that trade. Because they aren't required to center their entire emotional world around one person, they often invest more deeply in friendship. These friendships become more than just casual hangouts. For many men, they turn into real support systems where honest conversations can happen. Over time, this creates bonds that are steady, reliable, and surprisingly deep. Men who stay single by choice are more likely to maintain regular contact with friends, show up consistently, and build trust that doesn't depend on romantic validation. Another shift that's happening is how men relate to each other emotionally. There's a growing willingness among single men to talk openly about stress, purpose, mental health, and uncertainty. Without the pressure of appearing emotionally invincible for a partner, many men feel safer being real with their friends. This kind of openness strengthens friendships instead of weakening them. It creates a sense of community that feels grounded rather than fragile. What makes this especially powerful is that friendships distribute emotional support instead of concentrating it in one place. When all emotional needs are placed on a single partner, the relationship can become heavy and strained. Single men often avoid this problem by building what psychologists sometimes describe as emotional diversification. Instead of relying on one person for everything, they have multiple sources of encouragement, advice, and understanding. One friend might help with career decisions, another with emotional support, and another with perspective during hard times. This kind of network doesn't just reduce loneliness, it builds resilience. Research shows that strong social connections play a major role in long-term happiness and health, especially as men get older. Men who maintain close friendships are better equipped to handle setbacks and stress because they are not carrying everything alone. With strong friendships in place, men unlock something rare: uninterrupted self-development. When a man isn't dividing his time between relationship maintenance and personal priorities, something powerful happens. He gets his time back. Relationships, even healthy ones, require constant attention. There are conversations to have, plans to coordinate, emotions to manage, and expectations to meet. None of that is inherently bad, but it does consume a large amount of mental and emotional energy. When that energy is no longer tied up, many single men naturally redirect it toward themselves. Researchers who study lifestyle patterns have found that single men consistently spend more time on personal development than their partnered peers. That extra time shows up in small, daily choices that add up over years. Going to the gym regularly becomes easier when there's no negotiation involved. Learning new skills feels more achievable when evenings and weekends aren't already booked. Whether it's improving physical health, learning a trade, studying investing, or developing creative skills, single men often make steady progress simply because they have fewer competing demands. There's also an important identity shift that happens during this period. In many relationships, men slowly adjust themselves to fit what's expected of them. Over time, this can lead to subtle identity erosion, where personal goals and interests are postponed or abandoned to keep the peace. Single men, on the other hand, tend to preserve a stronger sense of who they are. Their decisions are guided by internal direction rather than external approval. They don't have to justify how they spend their time or explain why a certain goal matters to them. This self-directed growth is often misunderstood as avoidance, but the research suggests otherwise. Men who invest in themselves while single aren't running away from commitment. They're preparing for it. Personal growth builds confidence, discipline, and self-respect. These qualities make life more stable and, if a relationship ever becomes part of the picture, they make men better partners, not worse ones. Growth becomes a foundation rather than a distraction. When self-focus is understood as building rather than isolating, it stops looking selfish. It becomes practical. Mental health improves, finances stabilize, friendships deepen, and personal standards rise. But all of this, mental health, money, friendships, growth, points to one deeper truth. At the center of everything we've talked about is one powerful advantage that often gets overlooked: autonomy. For many men, autonomy isn't just a preference, it's a core psychological need. It's the ability to make decisions based on your own values, your own rhythm, and your own vision for your life. When you're single, that autonomy stays intact. Your daily choices don't require negotiation or compromise. How you spend your mornings, your evenings, your weekends, and your energy is up to you. This freedom shows up in small, everyday ways that quietly shape long-term satisfaction. You decide where you live based on what suits you, not what works for a relationship. You structure your routine around your productivity and health instead of trying to align schedules. You eat how you want, sleep when you need to, and design your environment to reflect who you are. These details might seem minor, but over time they add up to a life that feels coherent and intentional rather than fragmented. Autonomy also creates space to explore without fear. When a man is single, he can try new paths without worrying about how failure will affect someone else. He can change careers, move cities, pursue unconventional goals, or take time to figure things out. Mistakes become lessons instead of liabilities. Growth becomes a process rather than a performance. Without the pressure to constantly show up as a finished version of himself, a man is free to evolve honestly. There's also something important that happens to identity in this space. Without needing to perform a role for a partner, men often reconnect with who they actually are. They don't have to maintain an image or suppress parts of themselves to keep harmony. Solitude becomes a place of self-discovery rather than emptiness. It's where preferences become clear, values become solid, and direction starts to form. This kind of clarity is difficult to achieve when every choice has to pass through someone else's expectations. Psychological research consistently shows that people who feel in control of their lives report higher levels of satisfaction and well-being. For men especially, autonomy is closely tied to motivation, confidence, and purpose. When freedom is paired with responsibility, it doesn't lead to chaos. It leads to alignment. Single men who value autonomy aren't escaping life. They're actively shaping it, one decision at a time. Before we wrap this up, it's important to be clear about one thing. This isn't an attack on relationships, and it's not a claim that being single is somehow superior in every situation. Healthy relationships can be meaningful, supportive, and deeply fulfilling for the right people at the right time. What this video challenges is the idea that being single is automatically a problem that needs fixing. For many men, it isn't a failure at all. It's a deliberate and powerful choice. Singlehood, when chosen intentionally, can be a period of growth, clarity, and alignment. It can be the time when you learn how to manage your emotions, take control of your finances, build real friendships, and develop a life that actually reflects your values. That doesn't make you incomplete. It means you're building a strong foundation. And if you eventually choose to share that life with someone, you'll be doing it from a place of stability, not pressure or fear of being alone. So take a moment and ask yourself a few honest questions. Are the choices you're making really yours, or are they driven by expectations you never agreed to? Does your current path feel like expansion, or does it feel like you're slowly shrinking to fit a role? Are you becoming more of yourself over time or less? These aren't questions meant to judge you. They're meant to help you understand where you actually stand. If you're single right now, understand this. You're not behind, and you're not missing out on life. You may be exactly where you need to be. Use this time wisely. Build skills, strengthen your body and mind, and create a life you're proud of living. If you're in a relationship, this is simply an invitation to be honest with yourself. Are you there because it truly aligns with who you are, or because you're afraid of what life would look like on your own? Only you can answer that. At the end of the day, fulfillment doesn't come from a relationship status. It comes from alignment. It comes from living in a way that matches your values, your goals, and your sense of purpose. If this video gave you a new perspective or helped you think more clearly about your own life, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And let me know in the comments where you are right now and what you're building. Whatever path you're on, make sure it's one you chose.